Hello YouTubers and random viewers by chance who have happened to see this video and thought it was interesting. Today I'll be interviewing Michael Halliday, who is the leader of the newly formed British Columbia Excalibur Party. It's a special privilege because literally I am the first person to in person interview them with a video camera, which is the one I'm videotaping right now, so you know it's going to be pretty good quality. It might not be, but we'll let you decide anyway. I'll be asking questions more based on environmental, and then near the end it'll go into education, but it pretty much covers it. If you want more questions, comment it or inbox it, or even email it to Excalibur, and then they'll tell me to bring it up next time or whatever. It's up to you how to present the questions, but I will be reading them for sure. For the environmental questions, I cover large topics and some small, about the Andridge pipeline, the hydraulic fracturing, and the alternative energy. But first I cover why the name Excalibur and about the party platform. And yeah, we'll just go right into the interview. But first, I should mention, if you want to look at more of the party ideals, you want to go to www.bcexcaliburparty.com/party-ideals, or click the link right here. And yeah, we're just going to go right into the interview. So, why Excalibur?
Excalibur in the mythology 1,000 years ago or more was the symbol of uniting England together when everything was falling apart and the land was in chaos. It became the symbol of truth, honesty, justice, and we feel that the society is breaking down right now. That's a good symbol for uniting everyone, not just one particular group.
Okay, what does your party stand for?
The main principle would be truth, honesty, justice, honor, and balance. You wouldn't have had, if those principles were followed, you wouldn't have had the BC Rail fiasco, the HST, just to name a few. Our party stands for balance, right? Not to serve just a select group of wealthy people, big business, and not to serve the other extreme, the unions. We want a perfect balance where we sway both ways so that everyone, right, is looked after, everyone benefits from this province.
Okay. What are your views on the Andridge pipeline? I'm pretty sure I said that right.
Personally, I'm against it, and I don't believe that any government has the right to make that decision. I think at the very least it would have to be a referendum. Let the people decide. It's the people that are going to have to live with either the short-term benefits it's supposed to yield or the long-term ecological disaster that it could provide. And I think people need to weigh and make that decision. 85 people have no right to decide for over 4 million people and future generations.
How do you feel about the natives being bribed by our government to build on their land? Do you think it will be much like the Oka experience?
I think bribery at any time is not a good solution for running a government. And if you have to resort to bribery, there must be a flaw with what you're offering.
Okay. That's good. Why did you decide to run this election?
I was asking people if they knew who they were going to vote for. Not who they were voting for, but just if they knew that. they would vote for. And 85% of the people said they didn't know who they were going to vote for this election. And out of that 85%, 50% were saying that they just were not going to vote this year. And so I decided to start this party so that those people would have a choice. I think there's the two extremes. You've got the liberal side, which I think just serves their own self-interest, their own political agenda with their corporate big business friends. And the NDP, I think, serves mostly the unions and their interests. And once again, the rest of us are left out completely of the equation, right? Throwing a few scraps every now and then.
Kind of like living off like a aristocracy government kind of style with the liberals. Do you agree?
Actually, that's probably a very good analogy. I think we are kind of in a feudal system with the way things are run. People can't even afford to buy their own home. The land is going to be owned by a few, and you're going to rent that land from them. It sounds feudal to me.
All right. Do you think you have a chance of being elected?
Actually, from the reaction I've been getting, I think there's an overwhelmingly good chance of it.
All right, that sounds good. I hope you do. How do you feel about the attention that the people at the Lower Mainland have been giving you, such as like Twitter and etc.?
You mean with the Monty Python?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to get a few comments about the lake now. Maybe I should have hired a girl to stand on the edge.
Lady of the lake.
Yeah. I think it's, if it's all in fun, then I think there's nothing wrong with it, and people want to reminisce about Monty Python. I think that's great. It caused me to go and look at it again, and I thought, yeah, I've got to watch this from the beginning again. If they're really, really serious, then I think that's a real sad situation.
All right. Are you still actively seeking candidates?
Yes, we are, actually. Anyone that's interested in running in politics is more than welcome to contact us. We're looking for people from all walks of life, so we're not looking for people who are in big business. That seems to be a big thing with, they're in big business, they know how to run the province. We're at about a $54 billion debt since the Liberals took over. There was no debt before that. Big business isn't showing me too much like they know how to handle a province.
Yeah. So we're kind of following in the way of America, where it might end up being a war economy, if you haven't noticed, because of the way that like the government in America spends a lot, and we're following their kind of style, is what I've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed that. Have you noticed that?
I haven't really noticed the analogy with the U.S. I think the whole thing about spending your way out of a recession is sound, but I don't think it's being done right, because under Roosevelt, it was every person was given a shovel and they were put to work, and that helped the economy. The infrastructure we're doing now, that's a few very high-paid jobs making billions of dollars, like take the Portman Bridge, $3.3 billion. How much employment did that cause? How much did that help our economy? Not much. That's a hell of a lot of wasted money.
Not to mention the ice falling off the bridge and hitting the cars.
Yeah, and also bringing in a corporation to control the bridge, collect the payments for people to use it, and I think some of those rates are rather exorbitant. And when I was over in England, went across the Humber Bridge, and that was the largest suspension bridge at the time in the world. And you drive up, you throw your pound, of which is like $1, right? You throw that coin into the drum, the gate goes up, you drive on. There's about 8 lanes feeding in. To me, $1 sounds a heck of a lot better, and if they can fund a huge bridge like that, why with a smaller bridge are we having to pay so much? It's because we're also going to be paying the profit of the company that's running it.
All right. Uh, what is your opinion on the HST and the way it was forced upon the people of the province?
Well, I think that shows where the truth and honor and justice comes in with our motto, because if they had lived by that, there's no way they would have denied the HST of coming in, and then we get leaked memos that show they were fully intending to bring it on, at the same time totally denying they were. I don't think even people were so upset about the HST as they were outraged that they were so blatantly lied to. And I think with the BC Rail and other situations like that, they'd had enough. That was just the last straw. It was a blatant lie, and it was so disrespectful to the people. It showed total contempt for everyone.
All right. Grabbing my questions. Okay. How do you feel about the taxpayer-funded Liberal info ad campaign?
Oh, once again, that's mismanagement of public funds, right? Something that needs a complete end put to it. I think if the government was doing a good job, they wouldn't have to be tooting their own horn with taxpayers' money. And the ads are not really info ads. They're, look at us, how great we are.
All right. Let's see. Okay. How do you feel about the NDP I can't even pronounce words. Office scandal. Yeah, continues.
Constituency.
It's spreading.
Yes. I think that's alarming, to say the least, because once again it's showing $500,000 of public funds being siphoned in for the party agenda. It's enough to really worry you. If I wasn't running this party, I think I'd have to go and say, guess I'm ripping up my ballot.
All right. How do you feel about the elected officials promoting their religion through politics? Do you feel it is appropriate to do so, or more of just a personal benefit?
I think all people have a right to express their opinions, and I think religion is a very deep belief for most people. Whether they live it or not is another situation, but I think you can't really deny someone their spirituality, no matter what it is. And I think for people to be quiet and not be able to comment on what they are or how they think, I think that's denying them a part of themselves, and you're not going to get represented by the whole person that way, right? Because when it really boils down to it, they're going to be making decisions based on their beliefs. And I think it's a good way of also judging the person by those beliefs and understanding them more. And I think it makes for a more whole and full representation and person, so long as they're not pushing it. But I think to mention it, talk about it a bit, that's perfectly fine. Everyone has the right to listen or to ignore.
Okay. If you had a life motto, what would it be? And don't say YOLO.
Life motto. Well, I guess right now I'm thinking a lot about the politics. So I think the thing of do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, or basically truth, honor, and justice, they basically wrap up into the same thing. Live the way you'd want people to let you live, and you'd let them live the same way.
Okay. How do you plan on handling the energy crisis?
First, I'd have to really know if there is a true energy crisis. BC has no shortage of water. 6 years ago, the Liberals had sold over 6,000 miles of BC rivers at about $500 for every 9 miles. I'm sure it's gone up substantially since then. They're allowed to, the different corporations that have bought these rights for $500 for just 9 miles worth, would be able to redivert 50% of the water or doing it for energy. The Liberals have said it's going to be a $1 trillion industry, and it's not surprising, or if you want to be cynical, it's surprising that many of the Liberals sit on these corporations now. So I think we've got enough resources that I don't perceive any real, true, and honest. I think there's a lot of scaremongering to try and mislead the people. I think people have gotten very astute and knowledgeable. It's not like it was 100 years ago when people weren't as educated. I think you just pick up, you go on the computer and you can research a lot and you can start seeing the lies. And so I think that game's ended.
Alright, this is a bit of a long question, so I'm going to have to read off the paper. Liquid natural gas fracking. Do you feel that the increased production and decreased cost of hydraulic fracturing can justify its increased use in BC, despite the potential groundwater contamination and its history of causing earthquakes?
Well, actually, you've just mentioned several of the reasons not to really embrace it. I'm deeply concerned about it because it does cause earthquakes. It is very much a high possibility of contamination of groundwater and therefore the environment. Damage to wildlife as well. Who knows to communities. Where there are pipelines and stuff, these earthquakes registering up to 4 on the Richter scale can cause pipes to burst. It's not a sound practice. And once again, it's always this higher and higher profits. As we've seen at the gas pumps, oil prices are going down. You watch it in the paper, and actually the prices are going up at the pumps. Right? So I think the excuses for fracturing just are not there. It's for higher profits, not for the need for the resource itself. And the risks, I think, are far, far too great. They also use the wastewater, and they pump that in as well. So it's, again, they're putting in contaminated water instead of having to store it.
Alright. How do you feel, how do you plan to bring revenue into this province?
To start with, I think we're one of the richest provinces. I think what we've had is gross mismanagement by self-serving and greed. Bringing more, I think we can increase tourism. I think we can increase our mining industries and that. I think it's very unsound for us, like the Liberals. It seems that I'm bashing the Liberals, but they are in charge, so I kind of have to state it.
Yeah.
I think we've already seen a problem. You have a Chinese corporation coming into BC that isn't actually even a corporation. It is owned by the actual government of China. That's so you're allowing actually a foreign government to come in and take control of your resources. And when you allow that, you lose control of your destiny. You no longer have your resources. You no longer have the benefits of those resources. They've tried to bring in their own workers from their own country, so you don't even have the labor here working, so you have more unemployment. I'm not against foreign investment. That's a good thing. What I'm against is foreign takeover, especially by governments, especially when it hurts the future generations. It's short-sighted to sell everything off that we can to make today look good and leave nothing for future generations.
Okay, that's good. How do you feel about investing taxpayer money into developing alternative form of energy, much like China does with their rooftops?
I think alternative energy is the way of the future, but also making the machinery we have, like cars and that, much more fuel efficient. I saw that actually when I took a trip over to Europe when I was much younger. We I saw the same cars that we were getting about 20 miles to the gallon. Over there, it was state law that they had to get 35, and they did, right? I think we should look into funding solar energy. I think it's very viable. It's a very hard thing to charge for, so it's not been overly well received. UBC 30 years ago had a house that could operate fully on solar power. And there's also a university up in Squamish, which now is basically solar power. Wind generation is very viable. We've got a lot of places where we could actually implement those without harming the environment. Yeah, actually, I do believe in the taxpayers funding development.
Okay. Would you would you be at least satisfied if we could at least get to the point where we're using solar panels and the energy sources that we're using now together to be at least a little bit more fuel efficient with everything and like energy efficient?
Yes, I'd be in favor of that. I just want to see it better controlled. The last I heard was a $500,000 grant for Terrason Gas to develop methane. I'm not sure that was really a good program. Also, I don't want to see us going the same path as the U.S. does, where billions of dollars are given of taxpayers' money to develop products that the consumer then has to pay exorbitant sums of money for. I think actually if we do develop things, we should do it on a partnership where the taxpayer actually starts getting a dividend back.
All right. Uh, do you plan to field candidates in Abbotsford by any chance?
Yes, actually, I plan on fielding candidates in every single one of the ridings, but Abbotsford is definitely going to have a full slate. There will be, the 3 ridings of Abbotsford will have someone in them for sure.
Sounds good. Now, when you were talking about America previously, how do you feel about our education system in BC becoming much more like the education system in the USA? A lot of teachers speak of this, and a lot of uh, governmental people, like officials, I mean, come on news and they talk about it. How do you feel?
I think our education system is terribly lacking, and I think copying a system that was pretty well flawed. I remember when I was in school, if you came from America, you were put behind a year. If you came from Europe, you were put ahead a year. I don't think the path we're pursuing right now is the path to be going down, and I think education needs to be revamped, and I think that's beneficial for the student.
All right. Sounds good. Um, Speaking of education, how do you feel about earlier in the year, well, I guess last year, about the teacher strike?
I don't believe any group should be held for ransom, and I think the strike was, when it threatens the students, is not appropriate. That's not an example to set. The strike could have been threatened more around summer, right? So then there's 10 weeks, and then you say, okay, we're not coming back in September. That's fine. I believe they have the right to bargain, but I don't believe that they have the right to hurt the whole year's education of students.
I strongly agree with that too. Anything else you would like to share with our young voters? Because most of the people that will be looking on my channel are probably younger.
What I'd like to ask them is basically go out and vote. whether you vote for us or another party, or even if you show up and just put a huge X across the whole ballot, destroying it. Because when you don't show up, all they say is you're either lazy or apathetic. And I don't believe you are. I do believe that it's just that you don't have a choice. I'm actually basing everything on that, or there'd be no point in my running and starting this party.
Alright, well thank you for that time, or your time, sorry. Yeah, that's pretty much all the questions.
Thank you. Don't get the benefit of those resources.
Did it?
Okay, I guess that's the end of that.
Okay, well.
We could continue it inside probably.
Okay.